Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Love Fruit podcast. And today's guest is Victoria Everett St. John. And Victoria, I heard about a number of years ago, actually, from a video that was posted online. I think it might have been an interview with a short interview with Durian Rider, actually. And it might have taken place at a food and sport retreat or maybe a Woodstock Fruit Festival or somewhere like that. And she has a very
Yes.
interesting story to tell about her uh, health journey with 80-10-10 or on a raw vegan style diet. So, Victoria, would you like to tell us a bit more about yourself in introduction to yourself?
Oh, yes. I started this diet in November of 2006, and when I was 34 years old, and now I'm 48, and it completely changed my life, changing my diet, totally transformed me into a whole new person with a whole new life, and I'm very grateful.
And you were at some point you had the nickname the Crazy Banana Lady.
Yes, and I have a website that is still linked. If you type in Crazy Banana Lady, it will link you to my website. I since have changed the name to Embracing Your Joy because I found that more fitting with where I'm at now. So,
Sure. So, where did it start off for you? Were you brought up on a healthy diet or a vegan diet or anything like that?
no, I was brought up on a horrible diet. And as children, it was on payday, you feast on as much junk food as the parents bought until it's all gone, and then you live on ramen noodles and saltine crackers the rest of the month. And I was very sick as a child. I have a right leg that was almost completely burned with third-degree burns when I was a baby.
Jeez.
And I was on antibiotics for years and years and years, and I constantly had pneumonia and bladder infections, and I was very sick as a child, and it continued on through my adulthood, adding on mental illness that hit in my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just got sicker and sicker until at the age of 4, I was living off of cigarettes, Pepsi, and fast food. And I was so
Hello?
I don't tell you about by Kevin Trudeau, which doesn't promote a raw food diet, but it does say don't eat fast food. Eat more fruits and vegetables. Don't eat processed food. Eat organic food. And so I started to do that, and I started to feel a little better. And through that, more information came to me until I was read something about eating raw food because of the living enzymes. And so I decided I would try that. And I did it for one day, and I thought it was miserable.
Mm.
That fruit was not half as good as my Pepsi. And all I knew was apples, oranges, and bananas. But after one day, I woke up the next morning feeling better than I remembered feeling in years. And I knew I had my answer.
Yeah, so you said something, maybe I didn't catch this right, but it sounded like you said at the age of 4 that your diet was Coca-Cola, fast food, and cigarettes.
No, at the age of 34.
All right, sorry.
Good, you caught that.
Yeah. And that's interesting. You're talking about the book, the Kevin Trudeau book, The Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About, because that's also a book that Robbie Barbaro told me that he found years ago, and that kind of spurred his interest in natural cures, natural health.
Very nice. Yes, I'm amazed that it came to me through where I was. The answer came to me. I was laying in bed and I watched TV all day, and
Mm.
an infomercial interrupted my Judge Judy or whatever stupid show I was watching, and I was kind of irritated about that, but it was the message that I needed.
So a kind of a typical or a bad version of a kind of American diet. It sounds like you weren't very active either. You were just watching TV and things like that all day long.
Yes, at that point, I'd gotten to that. I was active younger,
Hmm.
average active, not athletic average, but I like to ride my bike and I like to water ski and snow ski and enjoy things like that. But I was still sick a lot, at least 4 or 5 times a year. I was on antibiotics for an infection.
And what was the kind of lowest point? I think I missed that. Like, what was the point where you thought I need to make a change?
Yes, so I did skip that part. So at 34, I had gotten my gallbladder removed, and I was actually excited to get it removed because I thought that's why I had been sick for so long. It didn't even occur to me. And it's so bizarre to me that it didn't occur to me that it was my diet or my lifestyle or my thoughts, anything. I needed a magic pill, or I thought
Yeah.
this was my pill. And so when I had it removed, I was even sicker, and I knew that I was going to die. And that's after a month of after it was removed, being sick and calling the doctor, and the nurse finally told me they were tired of me calling because I was in so much pain and I was so sick. And she said, sometimes it takes people a year to recover from gallbladder surgery. Call us back if you're having trouble then. And I hung up the phone and I knew I wasn't going to make it a year.
Wow. Hmm.
And that's where that was my bottom. That's when I started praying.
Right.
And I was actually a proclaimed agnostic until then. So
So you had these physical issues, but I believe that you also had there was a mental health component to your journey as well.
yes, I was diagnosed several things. It depended on the doctor. Bipolar, well, it was manic, and then manic got switched. The name got switched to bipolar,
Hmm.
and then schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. I believe that's all. Major depressed. I was severely depressed, and I was taking medication for depression. I never took the schizophrenia medication because it that really scared me to go that far. So
And how common are those conditions?
in worldwide,
Well,
what do you mean?
I guess in the US.
That's very common. I would say over half have severe depression or are diagnosed with severe depression.
Wait a minute, over half of all people.
Yes, and that's a guess. I'm not a statistics expert.
Hmm. Hmm. But it's a large number.
It's a large, yes, very large.
Jeez. So, and let's go further. So you started to basically wake up to the idea that maybe there was some other way of dealing with your health issues rather than going to conventional medicine. What are the steps along that journey before you kind of uh, fully committed to changing your lifestyle?
Well, when I had that day that I ate all raw, and I woke up the next day feeling so good, and I knew I had my answer, then I would go for a time and I would eat raw, but I didn't understand the calorie difference, and I had to get enough calories in to sustain this life. And so I
Mm-hmm.
would be so hungry after a few days, and then I would just cook up some whole food dish, like baked potatoes or you know whole grain spaghetti or something like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I would I would have to go back to bed for the day. I would feel so awful, and my body was so damaged at that point
mm-hmm.
that it just couldn't tolerate any of this heavy dense foods. It needed the light energy, the foods that digested themselves, basically, with all the vitamins and minerals and you know,
Yeah.
sun food. and,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so I went through that pattern for about 6 months, and it's hard to remember the exact timeline because it was, 14 years ago, November 2006. And so but it was around 6 months. And then I just decided I'm tired of going back to bed. I know how to feel good. I know this food makes me feel good. I'm just going to eat and eat and eat until I'm not hungry. And which is what you're supposed to do. But I had no books, no raw food friends, nothing. I didn't even have internet. I was so poor from being sick and broke. And uh, so I just started eating. Like I would eat half a watermelon and I'd go, well, I'm still hungry, and I'd eat the other half. And I was eating and eating and eating nonstop all day, just eating. And my health just kept getting better and better. And the weight was just coming off. And I didn't even care about the weight. I never cared about being overweight. I always said people don't have to look at me if they don't like it. I didn't care. But the weight was coming off. And then I started walking, and then I started bicycling, and then I really fell in love with bicycling. And eventually, a few years later, went bicycle only for 7 years.
Wow.
But my health and so going back after about 2 weeks or more, around that time of being 100% raw, my mind became clear. And my thoughts were so crisp and clear, and there wasn't that chaos going on inside of my head. And then I realized, wow, I don't need this medication anymore. And so I stopped taking it. I was taking a drug called Effexor, and I was on the highest dose. And I stopped taking it cold turkey, which I do not recommend because I was very sick, but I knew it was the medicine, the withdrawals from the medicine making me sick. And so it was about 3 months of having night sweats and night terrors and vertigo and a lot of withdrawal symptoms like that. It was about 3 months, but during that 3 months, I would get glimpses of feeling amazing, and I knew I was on the right path. And so I just stuck with it. But now I know that could have actually killed me, but obviously it wasn't my time. So
Yeah. So you talked about this chaos going on in your mind. What was that like?
oh, it was miserable, horrible suffering. It was always this uh voices of telling me these horrible things about myself and about other people. And um it was like there was a fog in my head. There was no clarity. There was no joy. There was no, spark in there. It was just like I was living life in this cloudy fog. And I didn't talk to people. I was very antisocial
Uh,
because I was always awkward in social groups. I didn't get how to behave around people. And it was just a horrible life of suffering and misery.
yeah. And that started to clear kind of like
Yeah, so,
the moment that you started to make change towards. Was it a fully
right.
raw diet you did at first?
I did. When I went fully raw, I went fully raw. And then I was eating just fruit, because I didn't know anything else. And I did that for, I'm going to say about 6 months, if I remember correctly.
Uh-huh.
And then I started to meet raw food people locally, which lived in a pretty small area where there's not a large population of Boise, Idaho.
Uh-huh.
It's a lot bigger now, but it's still small compared to big metropolis areas. And so I started to meet these raw food people, and they're like, "Oh, you don't need to be eating that watermelon. Here's some raw pizza, and here's this raw tacos and all." And I was so excited because I mean there were days where I would be eating my watermelon just sobbing because I wanted my double bacon cheeseburger that I was so used to, and
Mm.
so I was like, oh, I can have my cake and eat it too, kind of thing. And so I started eating this really dense nut-based food, and I started to not thrive again. My mind was getting all chaotic again, and I was depressed again, and the clarity was gone. And I was like, what's going on? I'm eating a raw food diet. Where can I go from here? And I was actually invited to co-teach this class with the lady on raw food. And so I was teaching the class, and towards the end of the class, I told everybody, I have to be honest with you. I believe raw food is the best food to eat on the planet, but I'm not thriving. I was, and now I'm not. And a lady in the group goes, read this book. And she gave me the 80-10-10 book.
Right.
And so I read that book, and her name is Michelle Martinez, and she's, I believe she's on YouTube as the Fruit Doctor at this
Yeah.
time. And so I read 80-10-10, and then I realized that's how I had been eating it first, unknowingly.
Right.
And so I went back to a high fruit-based diet, and immediately was back on top, back thriving again.
Awesome. I want to talk to you about the going back to the voices in the head and stuff like that, if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine.
Do you think that there's what's the connection there? Why do you think diet is playing a part in that? What's the connection, do you think, between that, and what do you think that is when people have that experience?
Well, again, this is just a guess because I'm not a medical expert, and I
Uh-huh.
don't think medical experts really even know.
Right.
So this is just from my experience. But yeah, all of that toxic food, my body was suffering, and anytime our body is suffering, our mind also suffers, because they're one and the same. They're all connected.
Hmm.
And so my body was fogged up, so to speak, and so was my mind. And so when I went to the raw food diet, my body was cleansing, and my blood was running fast, and I wasn't, my body wasn't sluggish, and therefore my mind was not sluggish either.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's interesting to think whether that's if everyone would have that experience, or if a lot of people would have that experience, if diet is so closely linked um,
There's
to that.
there's definitely a link in that,
Hmm.
because through the years, I started a coaching business on people with mental illness,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and I still continue to do it. I've also added in changing our thought process as well. But it's so much easier to change our thought process when we have clarity in the mind than when we have fog in the mind.
Right.
And so, but through the years of counseling people, most people wouldn't do what I recommended, but there are a few that did do it, and they all keep in touch with me, and they're all thriving. They
Excellent.
all got the same results I did.
Yeah, yeah. Did you do anything on top of that? Did you do other practices? Did you consciously try and change your thoughts, anything like that?
Not at first,
Hmm.
not at first. And then I would still have my ups and downs, but it was so much less
Yeah.
than before. And then and actually just recently this year, 2020, I call it the year of consciousness, is I really even, I mean, it's just a constant expansion that we go through in life. And this year has been a huge expansion. But through the years, I have worked on my thought process, but I was able to do that because I had the clarity
Hmm.
to be able to do that. But what I started out with was giving myself 30-day challenges of things that I feared, and I was scared of people. And
Hmm.
so my most memorable one where it really transformed me was I said for 30 days I'm going to introduce myself to 3 new people a day.
Wow.
Just walked up and introduced myself, and I was terrified because people were scary. And so I did that, and it was about halfway through that month that I realized there's nothing scary about this at all. The people love it when you're interested in them.
Yeah.
They like it when you want to talk to them. They like it when you want to know about them.
Mm-hmm.
And the fear just left. And ever since then, I've just been a social butterfly. People do not scare me, and I love people.
Mm-hmm.
They have negative energy. That means they're suffering. That means they need love. And
Yeah.
so even negative energy doesn't bother me, and so that I did that, and I do 30 days of giving 3 people a hug a day, different things. And then I started studying Marshall Rosenberg. I
Mm.
believe I'm not correct about the uh, uh,
Non-violent communication.
nonviolent communication. Yes, thank you. And so I started practicing daily gratitudes, which I still continue that to this day. And so I started doing that, but I still struggled with my relationships and communication and things like that, just as I'm a human. So and the stuff that self. And so this year has been the year where I've started really studying conscious language, um, and really being able to be the master of my thoughts, being the master of what I create in my life, realizing that I am my creator.
Mm.
And so it continues, the journey continues. But also I am not 100% raw anymore.
Sure.
And it's not because I don't believe all raw works. It's because I feel just as good eating some steamed foods, and I enjoy them. And so I listen to my body. If I eat something and I feel that heavy yuckiness, then I let it go. But I've experimented over the years,
Mm-hmm.
what does this
Mm-hmm.
feel like? What does this make me feel like? And so I eat mostly raw, and I have a little bit of cooked. And it's not even every day. It's so.
Okay.
Um,
Let me ask you about when you heard about 8 to 10, 10, but you also ended up. Did you go to one of Doug's retreats, or how did that work out?
yes. So I actually for 3 or 4 years I went to Doug's retreats. The first time I went to the first raw food big event I went to was a health and fitness camp at with Doug
Mm-hmm.
Doug Grant, and so that was really amazing for me, just connecting to people. And Robbie Barbero was there, and all these people that I'd seen on the internet. I was like,
Sure.
oh, they're real. And yeah, and the interview you saw with Durian Rider, that was you were right, that was at Health and Fitness.
Mm-hmm.
As well, but that was I'd been a couple years going to the retreats. So I went to that for about 4 years, and then I did 3 Woodstock Fruit Festivals in a row. The first one, and then 2 years after that. But then I just became really comfortable in myself and
Mm-hmm.
my lifestyle, and I really didn't need to have that boost of being around people eating the same as me. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, I always enjoy being around people like that. I've made lifelong friends, and people come to visit me that are raw foodies, and I go to visit them, and
Great.
there's still a wonderful connection. But I wanted to travel, and those happened during growing season. I got this passion for growing food, especially planting fruit trees. And so I didn't want to miss out on my crops while I was at the fruit festivals, So I quit going because I had different priorities. But that brings me to another phase in my life of where I had a big awakening on my purpose, part of my purpose. And I had been eating raw for a while, and I was on a walk eating an apple. And all of a sudden, I just was filled with this gratitude for this apple, like this. I'd never felt such an amazing amount of gratitude for this apple. And I just fell to my knees, just so grateful for this apple, and that it not only kept me alive, but I was thriving from this energy, from this beautiful fruit. And I just had this whole vision of my purpose is to spread this energy. I am to plant fruit trees and everywhere. That was my deal. I am to spread this energy and plant fruit trees. And so that's what I began doing, and I continue to this day. But I filled my yard with fruit trees, and when it was full, I would buy fruit trees, and I was bicycle only at that time, so I'd have them in my bike trailer. I could usually get 2 or 3 in there at a time, and I would drive around and I would knock on doors, and I would say, I have a peach tree out here that I bought for you. Where would you like me to plant it? and people would go, oh. And there was only one person that didn't want me to plant a tree in their yard. And these were strangers, people I didn't know. I would just feel called to stop here and knock on their door. And, I'd see their yard. Oh, they need a fruit tree. And so all over Boise, Idaho, there are fruit trees that I planted. And I now live in Texas, mainly because of the longer growing season was my purpose for moving farther south. So that was a big shift in my life as well. And since then I've had other visions of my purpose. My main purpose, which includes the fruit trees, is a giver of love. I am a giver of love, and that is my purpose. And anytime I stray from that, then there's suffering in my life, and that's okay. I just remember, oh yes, I'm being cruel to this person. My purpose is to be a giver of love. Let's do that. So, so yeah, that's
great.
Yes.
So, you're in Texas. What kind of fruits are you growing? What do you enjoy growing? And do you find it quite easy to grow these fruits?
Oh, Texas is great. And I actually live in, it's called Growing Zone 8B, where I can grow, I'm about an hour away from being able to grow citrus. I missed moving far enough.
Wow.
But I love where I'm at. I'm not moving. So, but I grow figs and persimmon and peaches, plums, pears, pomegranate, mulberries. I'm going through all my trees.
Amazing.
Pawpaws and olives, and yeah, that covers most of them. But I'm at a friend's actually right now, and she's got oranges on her tree, and I'm just waiting for those oranges to get ripe. So
for people that have never grown fruit before, do you think it's like a difficult thing to do? Is it quite easy? Do you have any problems or challenges with it?
I believe planting trees is easier than having a garden. Of course, I lose trees. I plant them and they die, and oh well, I'll just buy more. But if you plant a tree that's appropriate for the climate you're in, it's really easy to maintain them. You know, water them and fertilize them if they need it. I find it very simple to do.
Sure.
But I have that in me where it's just like, oh, it just works out. I just know it's going to work out, and it does.
Yeah, I sort of feel like people think there's a lot of maintenance involved, and there really isn't. There's not much to do
Yeah. And
when
if
it
you
comes to
plant
planting food.
them, yeah, right. If you plant it like permaculture, you don't do mono crops like orchards, then you really don't get the diseases. And every once in a while I get something aphids on there, but everything's so balanced in my yard that, you know, a week later I look and the aphids are all gone because something got them, probably ladybugs.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and the garden is, you know, I also garden, and I have an amazing winter garden here in Texas. It's really fun. But the garden gets stuff on it too. But I also, you know, if I lose it, well, we'll just do it again next year. Or, you know, I realize, well, this didn't work. I'm going to try it over here with these plants and see if we get a better outcome. But really, failure doesn't bother me in gardening. I fail, okay, well, I'm going to try it a different way.
Excellent. So you mentioned that you started to help people out at one point with a little bit of coaching, consulting, stuff like that.
Yes.
How did you start to do that? Did people start reaching out to you, or how did that process start?
Well, it really started with during Writer's Video. People would contact me, and I still do it. And so then I started my website, and I started the coaching. And of course, I was really like not really very good at it at first, but as I do, I just continue trying. And so I now I really I was scared, you know, what do I tell these people? But now that I've been doing it for a while, I can hear the codes. You know, it's a natural process for me, and I love it. And I don't promote it. I tried promoting it for a while, and it didn't feel right. It didn't feel comfortable, and because I was going out there instead of having people come to me. And I found if I go out, then people don't really want what I have to offer. When they come to me, they do want what I have to offer. And so I just let people come to me, and they do.
So you're still doing that now?
Yes, I am.
And how would people find out more about you or contact you, or where's your information at?
Well, I have it on my website, sort of. Mostly my website's my blog, and which I don't even do much anymore because out where I live, I only have 3G Wi-Fi. You know, I don't have Wi-Fi. I have 3D data, so I don't do much on there anymore. But I know that'll change as well. But there's information on there. Or they can just email me at embracingyourjoy@gmail.com, or they can find me on Facebook. So.
And it's Victoria Everett St. John?
Well, it was St. John, but I just got married this year, and so now it's Victoria Everett Collins.
Okay.
But either way, and really, if you just look up Victoria Everett, I have it as that. If you type in "crazy banana lady" on an internet search, I will show up. So there's that.
Yeah. So you're out in Texas now, and what for people who are beginning on this journey, what would be your best piece of advice?
Well, I would say keep at it, and definitely connect with people that can encourage you, and get a coach to somebody to help you with your accountability, help you get into your will, and also help you with your thought process, because really the reason we even succumb to failure and hopelessness and all that is because we believe that that's our outcome. So changing our thought process, saying I do have the ability to heal. I am available to heal.
Yeah.
And just open yourself to knowing that you always can heal. People have healed not being on a raw diet. People have healed. I listened to an audiobook a few years ago of her name's Anita. I choose to remember her last name, but she was on her deathbed with cancer, and she went in a near-death experience and was surrounded by love, and she realized that love is what's going to cure her. And so she went back into her body, and she understood pure love, pure unconditional love, and she was miraculously healed, and she didn't even do anything, change her diet in any way. So, love can conquer all.
Right.
Love is the answer. But putting food inside your body, love food. Fruit is amazing because it's the only food on the planet that we don't take. It's a gift to us. The trees gift it to us. And so when you're putting this gift into your body, and the trees are like, take me, spread my seeds. That's how their seeds get spread, is by giving this gift. So you put this gift of love into your body, and then you feel that love and your body starts to heal.
Amazing. Yeah. So what do you think is the next stage in your journey at the moment?
Oh, there's always going to be a new stage. But right now where I'm at, I realize through my thoughts and my words, I'm very wise about what I speak out.
Mm-hmm.
Do I speak out fear? Do I speak out love? And so I'm just continuing with that expansion. I've realized there's no end to how much joy I can experience. I'll reach where I'm like, oh, this is joy. Like, this is the joy. And then a month later, I reach a new level of joy. And so I'm like, and then I realize, well, there's no end. I can just reach more and more levels of joy and awareness and consciousness. And so that's it. I'm going to reach the highest level I can reach until my life is over, and continue on.
Excellent. So before we bring this to a close today, what would be some of your sort of final thoughts for people listening?
Well, I would say, have confidence in yourself, have confidence in your ability to heal. Ask and you will receive. Ask for answers and they will come to you. And the hopelessness and failure will only bring more hopelessness and failure. And it's okay to be like that. But there's a part of us that we all know that we have this power within us to heal. And so do whatever it takes to connect to that power.
Thank you very much, Victoria, for joining us today on the Love Fruit podcast. And just to remind everyone, if you want to get in touch with Victoria, you can search for Crazy Banana Lady. You'll probably find her, but also you can email her at embracingyourjoy@gmail.com. And she's also on Facebook. And if you enjoyed this interview, this podcast, feel free to share it with other people, or rate it, comment. Feel free to provide us with feedback. You can email us at info@fruitfest.co.uk. If you want to join our newsletter to get more notifications, you can go to fruitfest.co.uk to join the newsletter there. And thank you very much for joining us in today's episode of the Love Fruit Podcast.